Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you a really fun stasis build that I've made that involves the Necrotic Grip and the Glaive interaction that was added in Season 18. I did cover a build with this interaction very recently. It was a Void build, but, I decided to branch out and go for a stasis build because I haven't covered stasis in a long while, and stasis freezing with Necrotic Grips and the Glaive is really fun, so I wanted to get this out there, and hopefully people will enjoy this as much as I do. So, Necrotic Grips, basically what they do is when you melee enemies, you will inflict poison on them, and this has to be any melee. It doesn't have to be a melee charge or a regular melee specifically. It is any form of melee, including glaive melees, and basically they will get inflicted by the poison, and then when they die, they will spread the poison, and when those enemies die, they will spread the poison, and when those enemies die, they will spread the poison. It's just an endless loop of poison as long as there are enemies getting tagged by the poison and dying to it. So yeah, you can inflict this with any form of melee, and it's really powerful, it's really fun. It has a stacking damage multiplier, so every tick gets higher and higher, up to like 680% more damage than the damage that the melee inflicted originally, which is really cool. And you also get a bit of airborne effectiveness for Weapons of Sorrow. We are using a Weapons of Sorrow in this build, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, as mentioned, the Glaive can actually interact with that. So just a regular Glaive melee will inflict poison, and that will spread poison, and so on. So the Glaive that you choose to use does not matter at all. You can use whatever you like. I'm just using this one because I have a good roll. I can craft the Lubraes, you can see here. And, I have crafted the Enigma and the Nezaric's Whisper, but I mean, the Enigma is really good because you can get Grave Robber on it, but I don't think the Nezaric's Whisper can get Grave Robber, which is a bit of a downer there. If you want to use Nezaric's Whisper anyway, go ahead, but I do recommend having Grave Robber since we will be meleeing with the Glaive a lot because of Necrotic Grips, and this is just a good Glaive to have that with as well. Now, getting into the subclass, this part's pretty straightforward. It's basically the same as all of my other stasis builds, really. We are using Dustfield Grenades because we want the fastest grenade cooldown. We are not going to be using our grenades as grenades in this build. Of course, this is a minute faster than Cold Snaps and a minute 30 faster than Glacial Nades, so you will 100% want Dustfields on for this build. And the reason for that is we're going to be using Bleak Watcher, which is the stasis turret. And basically we're using this because we want to freeze and slow as much as possible, and then run in there and melee them without, having to worry about taking damage, really. Everything's going to be frozen. We can just go in there, melee one thing, and the whole room gets poisoned and dies. Really cool. And of course, with this, I'm going to be using Glacial Harvest, which means that when I freeze those enemies with Bleak Watcher, or my melee, or whatever I'm freezing them with, they will create Stasis Shards. And with these Stasis Shards, we are going to be getting overshields and health. So if we don't have our shields, or we're actually like actively hurt, this will just give us health. And if we are at full health, this will give us an overshield, which is super nice because everything is going to be frozen. We're going to be running into the enemies, like the big pool of enemies, getting ready to melee. And then as we do that, we will gain a ton of overshield or health, so that we're very healthy when we do it. And then we'll melee something, and then it'll die. With this, we're also going to be using Whisper of Conduction, which is basically those Stasis Shards will track to me, so they'll get to me faster as I run into the enemies, which is really, really helpful. Then I have, when I'm standing near a frozen enemy, is Whisper of Chains. When I'm standing near a frozen enemy, I'll actually get some DR. They did nerf this, but I don't remember if they nerfed it in PvE, so this should still be pretty good in PvE. I think it still resists 2 or resists 1, which is like 10%-ish, so it should still be pretty good. And of course, we are going to be running into a pool of enemies that are frozen because of the Bleak Watcher, and that means that we can just, dive right in, get the overshield, get some DR, and go crazy with the melee and poison everything. And then, of course, finally I have Whisper of Fissures, which, honestly, it's a great fragment. It is a great fragment, but I don't think this build really needs it. Basically, what this does is it increases the damage and the size of a stasis explosion when you defeat a stasis crystal or destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. Of course, we are going to be defeating a lot of frozen targets, but Because they're all going to be poisoned anyway afterwards, and we have lots of health and DR, I don't think this is really necessary. You could use whatever you want here if you'd like, but this is still great, so, you know, do what you want there. It's up to you. Now for the mods, this is pretty straightforward. We are going to be using Charge Harvester to get charged, since any kill or assist, no matter what it comes from, as long as it comes from you, of course, will actually get you charged. It has a small chance to get you charged. It's only ×1, but you will get charged eventually from that. So the poison from Necrotic Grips, the Glaive, your Weapons of Sorrow, the Shatter explosions, anything that you kill an enemy with or get an assist with will make you charged. And because we're only getting ×1, I did throw in stacks on stacks, which means we'll actually get ×2 because you gain a stack of Charge of Light with every stack you gain. So if before we were only gaining 1, now we gain 2. So that's pretty useful. That's the only reason why I have that in here, is so that we get 2 charges, so we can make use of those nice and quick. And that's pretty nice. And then I have double firepower to get the Bleak Watcher back faster. So currently our cooldown at 100 dis is 58 seconds. Just under a minute, which is really weird, actually, because this is the base cooldown, 1 minute 4. That's at tier 3 dis. And at tier 10 dis, it's 58 seconds. That doesn't seem right. But, okay. Unless that's because of the Bleak Watcher, I'm not sure, but Bungie needs to do something about that, because that doesn't seem worth it. But 100 dis is 58 seconds, and then with double firepower, we can knock out, like, a good 20 seconds of that, maybe even more, which is great, because we want those Bleak Watchers back as fast as possible. So that's going to be good. We want 100 dis. And we also have 100 strength just to freeze things with the melee, since, of course, freezing things with melees will activate Stasis Shards, and that will give us Overshield. So that's good. And it's just a free freeze as well. And then I have 100 resilience, because DR is busted in this game, so we need as much resilience as possible to get as much DR as possible. Now, you might be wondering why I haven't gone for recov with rifts and stuff, you know, because warlocks like their recov, but you don't need it on this, because we're going to be getting lots of health and overshield from the Stasis Shards, so we don't need this. And of course, we don't need intellect, because Shadebinder isn't, well, not Shadebinder, Winter's Wrath is not really that great. It's okay, I mean, it's still very good for ad control, but we've got this for that, and we've got this for that, so we don't really need this. But, you know, it is what it is. Also have Radiant Light in here for stats, just for strength. If you can get strength without this, or you don't want to go for strength and you want to go for something else, then you could swap this out for whatever you like. I would recommend another firepower here for triple firepower, but that is up to you. I do recommend having that though, so you could do what you want. Or you could throw in high energy fire if you wanted for a bit of damage. It does boost the damage of the Glaive melee, and it will boost the damage of the poison that comes from Osteo if you're using that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the mods. Now, the final thing I want to touch on is the Weapon of Sorrow of choice. I'm using the Osteo Striga, but if you want to use Touch of Malice or Thorn, you can. There are only 3 Weapons of Sorrow in the game right now, and there are 4 that we know of, the 4th one being Necrochasm, but that's not in the game yet, so the only ones you have the choice of is Osteo, Touch of Malice, and Thorn. They all pretty much do the same thing with their poison. Any kill with the poison will spread the poison. That's pretty much how it's going to be for all of those, but I prefer Osteo because it's just way better for ad clear. It's just a really, really, really nice gun. I really, really love this gun, so that's why I've gone for this, but you can use whatever you want. If you want to use either of the other 2, you can. If you don't even want to use a Weapon of Sorrow, you don't have to. You don't have to use a Weapon of Sorrow. You could run Agers with this build, and it's still fine. The main point is that Necrotic is going to give poison to the Glaive, right? The Weapon of Sorrow is just a bonus, so you could use whatever you want. But yeah, that's pretty much the build. Very straightforward. I will show gameplay at the end here, just like slapping mobs, random mobs. It doesn't really matter. There's not really much to show for the build. Let me know what you think, and let me know what you want me to cover next, because I'm a little stale on the builds right now. I've covered so many that I don't really have much else to cover anymore. So if you have any suggestions for builds, let me know, and I will try to cover them. But thanks for watching, and adios.